Hey everyone, I'm going to be covering me painting my boat. I'm using Total Paint. Let me find it real quick. Sorry, Total Boat aluminum paint. And this is Olive Drab. And I'm using it for the outside. And let me show you, I've already got started. I did the inside a couple years ago. Take a look at that real quick. So it's got some scuffs and stuff, but it's had a little bit of a hard life. I'll say this, the scuffs, most of the ones that I can spot is actually from that kayak, which is like 200 pounds sitting here and scraping it. I mean, this is, you know, me driving the kayak sitting in the boat strapped down. Of course, it's going to scrape any type of paint. But I think it looks pretty good. It's dirty, but I think the paint's held up pretty well these past few years. So now I'm working on the outside. So what I have done, I taped the rub rail on the inside, and I've got this red 3M scratch pad, and I scuffed everything up. I'm going to repaint this top. This is the inside is khaki. It's not Olive Drab, but I painted this when I painted the boat originally on the inside. I'm going to put Olive Drab on that. It's hard to tell, but I've scuffed up the outside and the front, and on this side, only the stuff that sticks out right now. Of course, I've got some deep scratches, but the lettering, it's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see a faint outline. This is a SeaArk boat, and you can still see some of the letter. I might hit that one more time because I still see the outline. So I've got some lessons learned from doing the other side, it's come out good, but some of the lettering is still apparent. So this side, from this line back, I painted, and if you look at the rub rail, it actually looks pretty good. Of course, any deep gouges are still there. But I'll say this, the Olive Drab is a little more glossy than the khaki on the inside, so it shows a little bit more. You can just kind of see where the ribs touch, and then when you go all the way back here, you can still kind of make out some of the lettering. It may not show up in this photo, but you can see that it's like right at the right angle, and the light hits it just right. But my plan is so, I bought this fancy lettering to replace the original lettering, and what I'm going to do is with the letters that I have left over, I'm going to put a name down on the back to kind of cover where that SeaArk, where it said that. I think that'll make it look a little bit. I was wanting to name the boat anyways, and I've got most of my letters available to me, so I'm sure I can come up with something. The wife does not approve of the dirty oar, so that's off the table. So I have to come up with something else. But anyway, so I'm going to put several coats. This is, you just roll it on. Let me find my rollers. But this is really easy paint. I will say this, it does take several coats, but it's a very hard paint and it's a very easy paint. And what I use, I may try something else, but I use these smooth foam rollers. So I think they do the paint's really got some good self-leveling qualities, so it does a pretty good job on its own. So I may pick one up with a nap just so I can get a little more paint on it. I'm sure the no nap probably is a little bit smoother, but it takes so many coats. It seems like when I did the inside, it only took me 3 coats, and I know that other side, it took me at least 5 coats, if not 6. But anyway, so it's kind of hard to see in this light, but you can see it's been touched up several times with spray paint and everything. Oh, and I forgot. Besides the red scratch pad, I have 180 grit. I got some 180 grit on this. I went over it a couple times with that, and then I cleaned it up. I sprayed it with Windex and a microfiber towel and cleaned it up. I think I've got all the dust off. All right, I just wanted to do a quick update. I hit some of the rough edges with some fillable primer, and just really mainly hit up the lines and the grooves I could see, and hit the outside of this rub rail because, of course, it's the most messed up. So we'll see if this smooths it out a little bit. I'm hoping it'll make the lettering that was on here a little less obvious. Looks pretty good for right now. So I'll start my first coat after this. Here's after one coat. Of course, you can still see some bleed through. It's very blotchy, but that's just where I got primer and different color paint underneath. Then I touched the front as well. But anyway, this first layer, it really isn't until the third and fourth layer it starts looking good. Anyway, so I'll update you after the second coat. All right, hey everyone. I just wrapped up my second coat. It isn't dry yet, but I just want to show an update. So it's all starting to look almost like one color. Still a little bit of blotchiness. The rail, it had a lot to where it was rubbed down to the aluminum or scratched down to the aluminum. Anyways, it's getting better. You can see there's some metal spots still showing through, but it's starting to come along. And then I just, when I'm done, so doing the other side and doing this side, I haven't even used a quarter of the paint, but you can see I wrap up my roller. I mean, it'll stay good for till the next day. So, all right, I'll give you an update after coat number 3. Thanks. All right, here is the third coat. There's a few scratches if you get up close, but it looks pretty good. I think that primer did help out some. There was a couple spots that I just didn't realize were there. And I could have hit them up with more primer, but I think they would have left the mark, period. But it might would have helped a little bit. The rub rail, it's starting to come along. I mean, this thing was all chipped up, but it's mostly solid green now. You can still see a little bit of aluminum underneath some of the spots, but it's getting pretty close. And it's hard to see in this low light, but I've been hitting the front too. And again, the other side, it's already painted, so it's come along pretty good. I'm going to plan on putting 5 coats on this. All right, I'll update you next after the 4th coat. All right, everyone, this is coat 4. And I got a light shining on it. Of course, it'll show every imperfection. But it's looking pretty solid. See, I got a large dent here. You see those bolts? That's where the original owner, there was a seat in the middle and he ripped it out and it lost some of the structural rigidity that it had. So it started separating there at that back seat. So I've got it bolted in to hold it in. I did reinforce the, it's outside this paint job, but I put some angled aluminum and reinforced those ribs. It's kind of hard to see, but I've got angled aluminum right there and angled aluminum on that to help reinforce that. And then also some, I think I put in some 5200 just in between it. But anyways, back to the paint job. It's looking pretty good. There's the other side. You can see where there's some paint on the rubber where I didn't tape it off when I did the inside. So I didn't want it to look any worse than it already did, so put some tape there, kind of like I did here. It's easy. It takes 5 minutes to put tape on it. It'll make your paint job a lot cleaner. The front's looking pretty good. It's kind of hard to see with the lighting, but it's looking pretty good. I'm going to plan on putting some Gator Glide on the bottom, but that'll be a project for another time. I'll do that in the winter. My plan is right now I've got my trim is messed up on this. I've got a part on order. It should be here in a couple weeks. I'm wanting to have this completely painted and get my stickers on. And once I get that trim fixed, that trim arm, I'm going to plan on using this sucker. But anyways, there you go. All right, I did the 5th coat on the boat. Actually, between the 4th and 5th coat, I did the rub rail. I did it 2 additional coats just on the rub rail and the top of the boat. Just because I usually run it kind of thin just to make sure it doesn't get all over the place. So anyways, it took an additional 2 coats. But I am done, pretty happy with the results. Here's the front. So it matches pretty well the whole outside. I do have to touch up the back. I guess just I'll show you the back to give you a better idea of how bad it is. As you can see, I stopped right here, so this is like the original paint. As you can see, it's a multitude of colors, so I'm going to try to paint this too. And it shouldn't be too bad since it's such a small area. But anyways, the boat's looking better than it ever has since I've had it. Rub rail looks good. Everything else. I do think the primer helped with the lettering. I don't feel like I can see a hint of the lettering on this side. And the other side I could definitely see a hint of the lettering that was on there. So I would recommend getting some sandable primer. And just as far as painting both sides in the front, I probably haven't even used a quarter of the paint, maybe a third at the most. So you can see that little quart paint can, it's not missing more than a third for sure. All right, I'm gonna put some letter. I'm gonna let it sit for a couple of days, and then I'll put my letters on it on this side. All right, this is the final shot. So I've got the stickers on. I got a little light on the boat just so you can see everything a little bit better. I know this garage is a little dark, but as you can see, it came out great. So just to kind of wrap up or summarize what I've done is on the side and the front, I did 5 coats. The rub rail and then the inside lip right here, I apologize, I got stuff everywhere. The lip, I did a total of 7 coats. I did 2 additional coats than the rest of the boat. I do think the primer was worth it. And I'll show you where I wish I would have hit it with more primer. And I don't know that it'll show up on the camera. But there's some imperfections up on this top. So I wish I would have done a little bit more primer on this. But anyways, I do think the primer helped. Because if you look at the other side, you can see where the old lettering was, where it said SeaArk. On this side, it looks a lot smoother. There's some imperfections if you get up on it, but from 5 foot away, you know, it looks pretty good. Again, I do think the inside color, which this is several years ago that I painted this, I think it's more of a matte color. I kind of think I prefer it. They call it khaki, but to me, it's slightly green for sure. Obviously, it's not the olive drab green. But anyways, I think it looks cool being a 2-tone boat as well. But I think if I was going to just pick one color, I would probably pick the khaki. So, I know I summarized the number of coats, but for prep, again, I used the 3M. I did 120. I think the other side I did 180. I think either way you're fine. And then I did the 3M red scratch pad to kind of do a lot of it as well. And then after that, I cleaned it several times. I used Windex. I'm sure there's better material, but I actually like using Windex. It evaporates quick. I used microfiber, and I used on each side, like I would use one and then I would use a clean one to touch it up. So to do both sides and the front, I still got to do the back, but I'm not going to do that on this video. It took very little paint. Matter of fact, let's show you how much paint I used. Oops. So you can see down in there, probably between a quarter and a third. I'm trying to remember the inside. For the inside, it seemed like it took a lot more, but I laid it down a lot thicker on the inside. So I think it looks pretty good overall. All right, well, thanks everyone. Post a comment if you have any questions. Thanks.